All right, folks, so we are still in Module 1. And last week when I lectured on last Wednesday, we talked about the principles of unordered spacing in a composition. And we just looked at some dots on an artboard or a canvas. And we played around with different arrangements of those dots to create a different kind of vibe each time. So we looked at ways of arranging these dots to where we had kind of a grid system working, or what I would call a very strict alignment. And so that's when you have very ordered placing of visual elements. And then we looked at more random placing of those dots. And that's where we really dove deep into exploring the principles of unordered spacing and how that can create a different kind of vibe where things are looser, freer, a little more spontaneous. And then we looked at different ways to group those dots and make separations, create a larger group in the lower right-hand corner of our screen, and then we had a small cluster in the upper right. And so I refer to that as there's a story being told here. We don't know what it is, but when you look at that, you can't help but wonder, why are those circles all up here by themselves and there's a group down here, And you can come up with whatever story you want because they're just dots. But you can see just how powerful moving around simple shapes like that, placing them and grouping them in different ways, can create a whole different sense of movement or not movement. We also explored how if we gather things in the center, then we have a really static kind of placement where your focus goes right to the middle of that artboard. And then at the end of class, I showed you a couple of samples that I was able to pull up on my screen of, one was a movie poster called Adrift. The title was way at the top, and there was a little sailboat down the bottom. And I was trying to make the point of, but with using something representational besides just dots, how powerful these principles of placement and division can be in a composition to evoke real primal kind of responses when you look at those images. So today we're going to look at line placement, and we're really just going to work with one line and different ways to place this line to create a composition. And so we're going to be using a file today that's in the Module 1 section, and it's in the Resource Files for Demonstration folder. And if you click that open, the one that we're working with today is called Toy Car Business Card, SDF. SDF stands for Student Demo File. And then there's another file that you can download or not. This one is not really essential for today's lesson, but it's called Toy Cars PSD. It's a Photoshop file. There's 4 layers in there of different toy cars. And so if you want to experiment with a different car for today's hands-on demonstration, you have that to work with if you'd like. And I know that everybody's had a chance to go ahead and download those images. So let me open mine. All right, so line placement and divisions. Just as the visual impact of an element can be enhanced by varying the measurements between it and other elements, so can the effectiveness of a line's placement be enhanced through unequal spacing. So in this first example, we see this business card. When you open this file, you'll see that there's one layer. It's called version 1, okay? And if you're not familiar with Photoshop, let me just back up a second. So remember, each of these hands-on demonstrations is to explore a specific concept with regard to design. It's also to take the time to get ourselves reacquainted or better acquainted with these programs. So today we're going to be working in Photoshop. On Wednesday, we're going to be working with multiple line placement, and we're going to be using an Illustrator file for that. So we're going to take some time and explore the work area of Illustrator, as well as some of the tools that I think you'll find helpful for this first assignment. So if you look at this document, we have a business card, and it's for someone who's a toy car collector. Okay, just totally made up. And I found these pictures online, these little toy cars. And so the way I've arranged this, it's not bad. I mean, if you saw this business card, it has everything that you need, and it has a picture of a card. The problem is, design-wise, is that we do have kind of a static feel to this. And the reason why, and again, it's not bad, but it could be better. So we have a line here that divides these two parts of the business card. So it divides the flashy photograph with all the type content, okay? And so what I want to do in today's lesson is I want to work this file that you all have downloaded through a couple of different iterations. We're not bringing anything new into this document. We're going to make all of these changes and modifications in Photoshop. So I have another file that you guys don't have, but by the end of this demonstration, hopefully you'll end up with a file like this that's going to have 3 layers. So I've just bounced over to my other file now. It looks just like the other one because mine is, I want to start with version 1 where you guys are, okay? But what if we thought about this line? What we want to do is we want to be able to give emphasis in a different way to this content. So right now we have equal emphasis on both the car and the type elements. So they kind of fight against each other. And then you have this line that just kind of creates this static feel. So both of these elements of both sides of the line are taking a lot of attention. So we need to make some decisions. And one is, where are we going to put this line? Because the line serves a purpose to demarcate the artwork and the type content. But it doesn't really work so great in the middle. So what if we were to take that line and move it over and decide that the car will take the majority of the composition area and that's what you see first. That's what we give emphasis to. And then the type still is emphasized, but it doesn't take up as much room. And we've just used this line to kind of break it into kind of a third instead of right down the middle. And that gives it just a little bit more visual interest. I see you smiling back there. And then I also played around with type styles. So in the previous example, if you look at the type style, again, I mean, it's easy to read. It tells you what you need to know, but it's Times New Roman. And it's not a bad font. I mean, it's not a bad font for reading an article in a magazine. It's actually very easy to read. But it's not a great font when you're trying to get someone's attention. And with a business card, the whole purpose of a business card is to, grab someone's attention. I still have your pen. Thank you so much. I ended up not needing it. And so I wanted to also fancy up the type a little bit and find some type styles that worked better with the theme of a race car, and then give the race car more emphasis in this business card. Now, it doesn't have to be that way either. This is fine. I like it. I think it's more interesting to look at than the previous one. But there's no reason why the type can't take emphasis and the car take a little bit of a step back. It will still be appreciated and noticed. It will still be a nice focal point, but it just really depends on when you're designing a business card, what part do you want to have emphasis? So this brings me to another version where I've given the car less emphasis. I've given the type more emphasis. I've still kept the type styling, same car. I've moved the dividing line, but I decided to change it and make it look more like the striped line that you see in the road. And I also gave it just a little bit of a drop shadow to kind of give it a sense of depth, and also helps it kind of tie in with that car that has a drop shadow behind it as well. So I'm going to walk you through the process of elevating version 1 to these next versions in Photoshop. And this will give you some great experience with working with the layers window in Photoshop, as well as the type tool and other little design tools. The last one is quite different than the first one. So now we have a dividing line, but it's implied. So what I mean by that is that, and actually we have several dividing lines. We have these yellow stripes at the bottom that are reminiscent to the double line stripes that you see in the road. And those are design elements that are supposed to mimic things to do with cars and roads. but they also are design elements meant to support type content. And then I'm still using the same type styles, but I've gone with a very specific color scheme now. You can see yellow, red, and black. I gave it a black background, but the implied line is how this type is aligned. So it's all aligned on the left-hand side, and that automatically creates this kind of dividing line that breaks it kind of into thirds. Not quite, but close. It's definitely not in the middle. And then I wanted to kind of apply more of a special effect appearance with that car, exaggerate its perspective, and even have a little bit of playful overlapping of the elements. So this is a big difference from this. This isn't bad. This would definitely get the job done for a business card, but it could be better. So go with me on this journey to go back to the student file, and let's explore working in Photoshop to build this up into 2 or 3 different iterations. Now, you're not being graded on this, so this is an assignment that you turn in. This is for us to get some practice with Photoshop and practice applying these principles about line and division in a composition. And I just thought a business card was a nice, simple concept to work with. Now, on Wednesday, we will work with multiple lines. And it'll still be a business card, but we're going to think about multiple lines and how those can be used to further organize type content in a business card. All right. Bless you. All right, so let's get started with our version 1 in our Photoshop document. So you'll see that when you open this folder, it's called version 1. We have some type elements. We have a layer. I should have named it. You can always name a layer by double-clicking on whatever the word is on that layer and then give it a more appropriate name. And that's a really good work habit to be in when working in any of these programs. When you're working with layers, you can always name them, and that's a really good way to keep track of your content. Did you have a question? The layers, that's a great question. So if you don't have your layers open, go to the window item and make sure layers is open. That's where you'll find it. And I think that's the only window you're going to need open today. Let me go get my pen. The student duplicate it? Oh, that layer? Yeah, we'll duplicate the layer. And if you know how to do that, go right on ahead. I'm going to walk you guys through how to duplicate the layer.
I really sat here and clicked around just because the way that the car was crooked was on it. So I clicked around until I could fix it.
Oh, okay. Hey, whatever, man. That's perfectly fine.
You mean this one?
That's it.
Yeah, it's still the same font.
No, I know. We're going to change all that. So
Oh, there's an undo it.
So your layers.
There's an undo button if you want to do it. All you have to do is go to the help and go to help and find it and search for undoing and you
Okay. All right. So, any other questions about the work area or where to find layers or anything like that? Okay. And chime in anytime. So let's just explore what we have going on here. We have layer 0, which is just the background layer. So when I turn that off, you can see the transparency behind it. We have the visual element of the sports car. Remember, these buttons turn these layers on and off. And then every time you see a layer with a capital letter T in it, that means that that is a type layer. And those get created automatically when you use the type tool. And you click anywhere inside the work area. You'll see a blinking type cursor so you can type, and you will also see a new layer get created that has this capital letter T in it. to let you know that that's type that you just created. So that's really all that you see here, and then we have the line, just the simple line. All right. So what I like to do, you do as you please, but I like to see where I've been and how far I've gone. So I like to duplicate my groups so that I can see the different iterations of it, the different evolutions of this postcard or business card. So I'm going to duplicate this folder layer. And how you duplicate it, because remember, we're just going to work right from this. We're not importing anything new. So you want to go up here to the menu bar in the upper right-hand corner of the Layers window, and you want to say Duplicate Group. And I'm actually going to call this version 2. So it's going to try and name it for you, but I'm going to name it, I don't have to go to my keyboard for this, version 2. And then I'm going to lock version 1 layer so we don't mess it up. Now we're on version 2. All right. So let's work with the type elements really quick. Yeah.
How do you do that?
Sure. Okay. So when you lock a layer, you make sure it's selected, and then you hit this padlock right here. And you'll see a little lock show up. So if I want to lock this layer, I'd make sure it's selected. You can see that it's highlighted. And then I would hit that lock, and now you can see everything is locked on that layer. And that way you can't select something and accidentally delete it or move it or, do something to it you didn't need to do. But what's your question, Mr. Caldwell?
Oh, can you go back to with the small square?
Oh, you duplicated that? Yes. Okay. So when you have it selected, you duplicate. You call it version 2. Sure. Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Awesome. Any other questions? And please feel free to ask questions as we go. I don't want anyone to feel lost or, anything like that. All right, so we're on version 2. So the first thing I want to do is I just want to change this, the balance of this. So I'd like for this line to be moved over and maybe give the type more emphasis, or maybe less emphasis and give the card more emphasis. And so before I do that, and also we need to align this type differently. That's another thing that I'm not crazy about, is that it's all in this window here, but it doesn't seem to have any relationship with, in terms of alignment with this line in the middle or anything else. So I want to align this type in a different way where it's not centered, okay? Because it kind of looks like it's its own little composition within a composition, and that's not really the look that we're going for. So first I'm going to start working with just updating the type style for this card. So I'm going to start with choosing Chevy Chase, and I honestly forgot the type style, so I got to go back to my other one. I got to look at my cheat sheet, y'all. Sorry, I just don't remember the font style. But if I select it, it'll tell me. So it's called Amboy Black. All right. So let's go back to this. So how you work with type. Now this is type that's already been created, so we're not really creating new type. But I'm going to select this person's name. Double click on it. And up here at the top of your window, you should see what's called the control bar. This is a shortcut for different actions that people use frequently when they use these tools. Now, this is not all that you would ever need when editing type, but these are the things that most people need on the fly, pretty consistently. So that's what the control bar is it gives you access to things that people use all the time, and need quick access to these things. So we want to be able to change the typeface. So I have that selected. We want to change the font style. Right now it says Times New Roman. Okay. So you'll notice up here we have a way to select a new type style. And I can scroll through here and try and find Amboy Black right there. Oh, I just clicked on AMBOI. So if you click the drop down menu, you should be able to see it kind of close to the top. I found mine right here. When I say close to the top, I mean like where all the names that start with A are. You don't? Okay, well, try a typeface like Impact. The thing about Adobe fonts is that they will have something to use that's really cool and that I really fall in love with, and then they discontinue it, and then when I try and use it for another class, it's not available. But no one sees Amboy? You have to select the type, and then it will give you that information in the control bar. So select the type directly on this. Okay. Double click. So yours is locked. That's one reason. You got to unlock it and now select it. There you go. And then there is your place to find fonts. Amboy. Did anybody find Amboy? Did you find it? You found it? You can? Oh, you'd like to find more fonts? Okay. Yeah, so there is a way to add more fonts. If you don't see, if you don't find what you're looking for in Adobe fonts, let me say this closer to my computer. If you can't find what you're looking for with just the regular Adobe fonts that come up when you go to choose a font style, you can go to More Fonts right here. So this is your fonts. So that's what's already on your computer when you installed Adobe, or Adobe Photoshop. That's what it gave you. And then if you don't find what you're looking for here, choose More Fonts. And it's going to take you to the Adobe Creative Cloud library of fonts where you can download other fonts.
So you have to fonts Adobe Photoshop fonts.
Yes. Yeah. Anything. Oh, it's sampling in these different. Okay, never mind. Hooray! All right, so we found it on, if you don't see it, we did find it on more fonts. So that is a possibility to be able to do that. Oh, I just messed mine up. Okay. So go on here, there we go. And I like the red, so that's okay with me. Let me look at my cheat sheet again real quick. I think I did Amboy down here for toy car collector, so I'll just do that with the same thing over here. So I'm going to select this just by, if you triple click on it, it'll select the whole line of type. Then I'll go over here to the control bar and choose Amboy Black again. And apply that. And then for this one, this was a little bit different. I just like the crispness of it. It is called Rift Soft. Rift Soft. You can see it right up here. So that's what I'm going to apply to this one.
So,
yes.
So one is asking, are you version 1 or version 2?
I'm working on version 2. We want to keep version 1 the way it is so that we can see where we started. And with each new duplication of that content and revision, we will see this be worked in stages or worked to different finishing points, really.
It's called what?
Rift Soft, yeah.
Is there another one of them?
Yeah, let me get to mine. If you can find one that just kind of looks similar to it, you'll be fine. It's not that big of a deal. It's the only thing I don't like about Adobe fonts is that they change them up all the time, and I'll use one for a demonstration, and then later. See if your layer's locked. Yes. So it looks like I used Rift Soft for everything below. Got it? Okay, good deal. And so if you notice what's going on here, there's a reason why I chose the crisp, clean, more minimalist looking font for the address, phone number, and website. And that's because I wanted to give more emphasis to the name and the title of the personal and business card. So we still have our type that's just kind of, centered. There's no alignment that creates a real relationship with this dividing line. So since these are all separate lines of type, if this were a paragraph and I wanted to align everything to the left or the right, I could just choose the whole paragraph and then choose one of these options up here for alignment, but that's not going to work for just one line of type. So what we're going to do is we're just going to eyeball it, all right? And, well, not quite eyeball it. We're going to use our guidelines over here to the vertical ruler. Okay, that's a great comment. So if you don't see your rulers, here's how you find your rulers. We're going to go to Window, and wait a minute. I think it's View. I always go to the wrong place. Rulers. So you'll find Rulers under View. And once you click that, put a check by it, choose it, it'll put check by it. Then you'll see rulers that run at the top and bottom. Now also be mindful of what kind of increments of measurement they're setting up for that. Okay, so if you want to change the increments, I would like to work in inches. So the best way to work in inches is you can change your ruler by placing your cursor up here on the ruler at the top or the vertical ruler on the side. And then you will press the Control key and click. And you'll see a menu pop up that lets you choose what kind of measurements you want to use. So I like inches, so I choose that. And that'll update your rulers to inches, but you can work in points, picas, centimeters, millimeters, whatever, whatever you like to work in. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start to create some sort of alignment. I'll pick up my interpreter and move her over here because I keep walking in front of her right here. Of course, I might do it over there too. Maybe I should put her way up here so I can't stand in front of her when I walk in front of the board. All right, so the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to pull one of my ruler guides by just clicking and dragging from the vertical ruler. And I'm going to bring it right. Maybe this time we're going to make the car bigger and the type. It's not going to change in size, but we're going to offset it just a little bit more to break up that halfway mark. So we're going to use this guide. This guide does not print. Yeah. Okay. Sure, absolutely. What's going on? Your rulers are up. You see? They're all right here. But yours is set in, looks like maybe millimeters. So press the control button and click on the ruler. And choose inches. Yeah, yours is set in inches. There you go. Uh-huh. And then you can just click and drag from this ruler, hold and drag a guideline that you'll use to as a guideline for aligning your type. How are we doing, folks? Any questions so far? So with this part, we're going to use the Move tool as our selection tool and Move tool. And the Move tool looks like this little target or little cross with little arrows on each end. Yes? It's not what? Oh, it's on
pixels instead of inches.
Hi, that's okay. So
I'm over here
that's
still
okay.
using this one,
Okay.
so that's a little different.
Hold control when you do it. You'll see a special lead. Maybe
Yeah, you can. All right. All right, you guys. Okay. All right, so now we're going to use the Move tool. So you'll want to go to the tool window and grab the Move tool. This tool allows us to select objects and also move them and scale them. So with that tool selected, I'm going to choose my first line of type, and I'm just going to move it over and line it up to that guideline right there. And I'm going to do that with every bit of the type beneath that. And I'm also creating divisions between each bodies of type, so that we have some breathing room, or I call them little visual speed bumps. One thing you don't want to do is you don't want to have line for line for line for line without any spaces when you are breaking down information like this. So, we have a section that's just the person's name and their title, then we have the section that's just the address, and then we have the section, how did that? We have the section that's the phone number. And is that locked or what?
So, every letter is a number having straight line.
I'm sorry?
Every letter is a number having a straight line.
Aligned on the same, yeah, the same grid framework. Oops. Sometimes that pen just doesn't work too great. And now if I move this line over, I have space now to scale this car up and give it a little bit more emphasis. And I could even rotate it a little bit to kind of fit more of it in there. And when you want to get rid of your dividing line, you can just select it and delete it. So now we have something that's much more eye-catching. Oh, I'm sorry. I just did that, assuming everybody knew how to rotate. I selected it, and I don't know. Yeah, if you place your cursor to the corner of one of these handles, you'll get a little rotation icon. It's like a double arrow, and that allows you to rotate. And then to scale it, you just grab these handles here and pull it in or out, and that will scale it. And then to move it, you just click right in the middle and pick it up and move it. So I like playing around with different, placements of it. Come back. Another thing too to keep in mind, and we'll talk about this even more in later modules in this course, but it's important to think about this. The direction of the car is also important, so I forgot to mention that. So if we faced it in the opposite direction, if I flip this, let me find my tool to flip it. Yeah. there is a way to flip things in Photoshop. I just wanted to show you this so that you know how to do this, but also show you why it's important that the direction of your visual elements, how they face, really matters. Rotate you, that's not what we want. It's hiding. Find my picture in here. One way to do it is, oh, didn't look that way. I thought I could just flip it that way. I cannot find the flip function. That is so strange. Rotate, that's not what I want. Well, anyway, I'll have to figure out where that exists now. I don't want to waste any more time with that. So you'll just have to use your imagination. But my point is because of in Western culture, the way we read, we read from left to right. In our minds, subconsciously, we think of forward motion, as going from left to right. We just do, and you'll see many examples of that in later designs, that we'll look at in this class. So if this car were pointing that way, it would be giving you a direction that you're not really consciously aware of pointing your direction outside of the business card. So the fact that this car points toward the type is meaningful. It helps to bring, even though this is our focal point when we look at it because of the size of it, and then we have this dividing line that helps us create a more interesting looking and less static looking business card. The fact that the car points in this direction towards the type also helps to reinforce the emphasis of this type, because it's directing our attention to it. So the car grabs our attention. It's like, whoa, look at that car. And then it's pointing to the type over here. And that's really, the whole purpose of a business card is, to make all those elements stand out. And how you place those visual elements really matters. So this is version 2. We just finished version 2. And now if you turn off version 2 and look at version 1, it's quite different. I would say much improved. This looks a lot more polished, a lot more professional, and we did very minimal things to this. We increased the size of the scale of the car, we moved the line over a little bit, and we fancied up the type by choosing some font styles that aligned better thematically with the whole car genre. So let's move on to our next redo. So we're just going to build on top of this one. So let's duplicate this bundle, this folder, grouping, whatever you want to call it. So select version 2, go to the menu bar, and you're going to choose duplicate group. Don't choose delete, choose duplicate. And this time, this is going to be version 3. I'm going to type it. Bless you. Bless you again. Yeah, this is the season where things are beginning to dry out and begin to get crispy and fall and dusty, and I start to get like allergies and
There's 2 times a year
sniffles.
that I hate. That's summer and whenever summer decides to fall, well, fall.
Yeah.
Because then the pollen's like,
Yeah, spring is hard on me too. They're both really brutal. I just carry Kleenex with me everywhere I go because I know I'm gonna have a runny nose.
What do you see the difference between version 1 that's lot and version 2 that's
Okay. Let me take a look. Let me show you something. So there's your version 1. And then now I'm turning version 2, it's covering version 1, so I can see it. Yeah, and then your version 3, we're going to change this. So you won't see a difference between these two just yet. So lock this one so that you don't mess it up. You're welcome. All right. All right, so we are now in version 3. We're working right along. So let's take a look at my cheat sheet here. And what's going on in my version 3. So version 3, I kind of did the opposite. So I decided in this version to make the car smaller. It's still a focal point, and it still does its job at pointing toward the type, so that's good. But I've decided to make this type take emphasis. That is what people see the biggest and take up the most space. And I also decided to kind of play around with this dividing line. I wanted it to look more like the striped lines that you see on a road. So, and I gave it a little bit of a drop shadow. So in this version, we're going to create a line, or we're going to actually edit the line that we have. But I want to show you how to use the line tool in this program, and also we're going to show you how to apply a drop shadow to visual elements in this particular version. Okay, so let me go back over here. And here we are at version 3. I'm going to lock version 2. I don't want to accidentally mess it up. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and scale that car down. Okay, so another practice in scaling. Select the item using the move tool. Oh, I'm on the wrong layer. Oh, I know what it is. Hold on, please. All right. So now I have the car selected, and I'm just going to grab the scaling handle and scale it inward. Bring the car back down. Remember, it's not going to take up as much room as it did before. So maybe 1/3 of the space of the work area. I'm going to get this line. And, you know, I do want to show you how to use the line tool, so I'm just going to delete that line. I'm going to create a new line. And I'm going to create a new layer to put that line on. Oh, it's my background. Okay. This layer 0 that's white. That is the white background for this card, just so you know. So that's what is keeping what's going on the other previous layers that are visible invisible. So I'm going to create a new layer for my line. So I want to make sure I'm in version 3. Just select it and hit delete. Yeah, so select the line to delete the line. Just select it and hit delete on your keyboard. We're going to, There we go. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create a line, but we have to, in Photoshop, you have to create layers, that you're going to create content on. Now, in Illustrator, it'll create layers for you as soon as you start drawing. This program's a little bit different. So I'm going to go up here to my menu bar at the top. Make sure you're on the right version group layer, and then hit your menu bar and choose New Layer. And it's a good idea to go ahead and name it. So I'm going to name this one Line. And the reason why you want to take the time to name your layers is because if you have a document with a lot of layers in it, it can be really hard to find your content. That's the layers window is how you organize the content in your work area. So if you just have them named randomly, like layer 1 through 25, it can be really hard to locate something that you're looking for. So if you take the time to name it, then you'll know what you're looking for. Do you have a question? Okay. So now we're going to get the line tool. If I can find it. Right there. No, line tool. Nope, not pen tool. You can use the pen tool, but that's a whole different lesson when you're creating paths and how to work in the path window. We're not quite there yet. Nope, I'm looking for the line tool. You could also use the single row marquee tool or single column tool, but there is a tool in here that creates lines. I'm trying to find it. There it is, the line tool. So how this works is it just creates straight lines, and you get pixel sizes for it. So to use this tool, you literally just click and drag a line. And what it's really doing is it's creating a pixelated rectangle, or a solid shape defined by pixels. And so what that means is this shape isn't defined by a path, it's defined by hundreds of little dots, yellow dots of information that make up this straight line. And with pixels, you can actually erase parts of it or all of it when you work with pixels. Now, you could get the same accomplishment here with this vertical marquee selection tool, but it's going to create more work for you, and it doesn't like to work with this for whatever reason. Or maybe it's because I'm using this pen on that. When you see these marching ants, this is something else you need to know. Whenever you're trying to select an area in Photoshop and you see these marching ants, that means that it wants you to do something in the confines of that space, and it will not let you work outside of that while that selection marquee is going on. So if you ever make one of these by mistake, like I just did, the way that you get out of this is you press Command D. So that is the command to deselect the selection area. All right. So now I'm going to do this again with the line tool. And there it is. And I'm going to click and drag a line. And It's a pretty skinny line right now, but you can increase the weight. Right now, if you look up here in the control bar, it says weight of 5 pixels. So that's the thickness that you get. How did that just happen? I touched the wrong thing. So this is the weight that you get of 5 pixels. I want mine just a little bit thicker than that. So I'm going to redo this line. Command D. What is it? The marching ants? Select it and delete it. That's all you gotta do. Select it with the move tool and then hit delete. Now I'm going to get my line tool again, and before I draw my line, I'm going to increase the pixel weight. I might do it up to 8 pixels. Let's just see what we get. I don't want it on the type layer. I guess I deleted my whole line layer. Okay. Remember, you've got to have a layer to be able to draw on it. And so now I'm going to click and drag, and that's a little bit thicker. I might even go as high as 10. So, and this is good practice for learning how to use these tools, how to make selections, how to select things to delete them so you can draw them until you get them the way you want them. So now I'll go back and get my line tool. And by now, hopefully you've kind of figured out that with every single step or every next task that you want to perform in a program like Photoshop, this is true for Illustrator as well, once you've used the tool to carry out a specific task, it's time to move on to another tool that allows you to carry on the next task. So you notice me switching tools a lot, going back and forth between the line tool and deleting it, and then getting the move tool to do different things. So I'm going to raise this up to 10 pixels, and I think that's going to give me a nice, bold thickness to work with. I hope. And again, I deleted my line layer by accident. I didn't mean to do that. So I'll make another one. And now I'm set up for 10 pixels. My color is yellow. If you want to know how to set the color on the front end before you draw your line, double-click this Set Foreground Color. And you will get a color picker window that pops up with a hue slider that allows you to pick different colors. And once you get into your color range with the hue slider, then you pick the value of the color that you want to work in. And once you click that, you'll see what your preview looks like in this little window up here. And that is the yellow that I want, so I'm going to choose OK. And now I'm ready to make my line. So I'm just going to click and drag again. That's a good thickness. We can do some fun stuff with that. And now I have my yellow line. We're going to turn this into a dashed line. Now, in Illustrator, it is super easy to make a dashed line. And if I were actually going to make a postcard or a business card like this, needing a dashed line, I would do it in Illustrator. And I will show you about dashed lines in Illustrator on Wednesday. But because we're in Photoshop, it's worthwhile, if you ever need to make a dashed line or something that looks like a dashed line in Photoshop, this is one of the ways that you can do it, okay? So we're working with pixels, remember? And so that means that we can easily erase bits of this information that's pixelated or all of it. And that includes the car as well, all right? So the car allows us to interact with it the same way. The only thing that doesn't is type. Type, just you cannot delete it or erase part of it with the eraser because it's not pixelated. Well, it is pixelated, but it doesn't behave like other visual elements that you create. A type layer is very specific, has very specific behaviors. And so if you want to delete type, you just have to delete it. The only way that you could do a special effect that you erase part of it is to rasterize that type. And that means to turn it into pixels so that it's no longer editable. All right, so let's make this a dashed line. Here is my quick and dirty way to do this.
Question.
Yes. Command Z is your undo. Yeah, is your undo button. That's a good question. You're welcome. All right, so I am just going to create, I'm going to use the marquee rectangular tool. I could even use the single row marquee tool, either one. And then I'm going to just click and drag, not that, never mind, I don't like that tool. Let's just forget that tool exists. I'm going to go back and get the rectangle marquee tool. And what this does, this tool allows you to create a selection area that either just defines an area that you're going to fill with pixels, or it creates a selection area of pixels that you're trying to select. All right, so let me demonstrate. I could use this tool to take a big old chunk out of this car right here. So notice that I just drew a rectangle on that, and let me get the car layer selected so that now that selection area knows that I am wanting to select a group of those pixels. And then I would just get the move tool. This is not what I really want to do. I'm just demonstrating how to interact with selections of pixels. And then I would just pick this up and move it, and it cuts it out like a cookie cutter. All right, so that's not what we want, but I just want to show you that that's how selections work. All right, so what I do want to do, though, is I want to show you how this can benefit you in creating a dashed line with this line that we have here. So I'm going to take this same tool, the rectangular marquee tool, and I'm going to click and drag just a small box. That's it. Nothing any bigger than that. That will suffice. And now we have a small area of pixels inside this column that are selected. Everything else outside of that is completely masked and protected. If I hit delete on my keyboard, it's going to remove those pixels. Oh, wait a minute. Let me back up. Be very mindful of the layers that you have selected. So what I just did was I selected this white background, which somehow became locked. You want to make sure you have your line layer selected, all right, so that we know that we have the target area selected so that we can delete that section of yellow pixels. And now they're gone. See that? Yes. So you have the wrong layer selected. Is it locked? Okay, let me come take a look really quick. It's 1:29, you guys. We're going to have to wrap it up. We'll have to finish this up on the inside. Oh, you created a smart object. That's why. That's okay. You're learning. I'm just all phones when it comes to the computer. We're going to create a new layer and all around. And then we're going to do that. So it made it, well, that's going to be what we want to do. And just do it there. And let's see what that is. And so that, I think it's right here. So, yeah, you'll need to screen it with, I'm not sure why it's, one thing to do is just rasterize it. This might be a Windows thing, so go to layer and rasterize shape. It's just made a shape for you. But now it's pixelated, so you should really use that help you to Hi, Dana. What's your question? What's that? What? Which? This? The yellow line? Okay. So when you when you create a line up here, make sure yours is set to really small, easier. So let's put that up to right now it made it as a smart object. We didn't do that on mine, but here's what you'll need to do. You'll need to rasterize that so that you can delete chunks of that. So to rasterize a layer, you make sure it's selected. And then you go to layer, and then you look. And you'll choose rasterize. And now you can select parts of it and place it. All right, you guys, we have run out of time for today, so I'm going to save this file. Let's pick up where we left off on Wednesday and work these up to their final versions, and then we're going to move on to Adobe Illustrator. Just save it as a Photoshop file. Save it somewhere on your computer, huh?
Really?
What? You just save it. Just go File, Save As, and then save it to your desktop or make a folder to put it in. It'll automatically save it as a Photoshop file. Unless you designate it to do something else. Bye, Eric. Y'all have a great day. I hope y'all enjoyed today's demonstration.